Tyson's life is one of the wildest financial stories ever told. From becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in history, to earning over $400 million, losing nearly all of it, and then rebuilding his fortune through businesses, media, cannabis, and cultural legacy, Tyson's wealth journey is a roller coaster unlike any other. Today, we break down the mansions, the cars, the spending, the losses, and the comeback empire that turned Iron Mike into a modern millionaire. Mike Tyson's journey to wealth began long before the mansions, cars, and global fame. Born into poverty in Brooklyn, Tyson grew up in a world where survival came before dreams. That changed when legendary trainer Cus D'Amato discovered him. Under Cus's guidance, Tyson transformed from a troubled kid into a boxing phenomenon. By the time he was 20, he wasn't just fighting, he was becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in history. And with every knockout, the money followed. Endorsements, TV deals, and massive fight purses turned Tyson from a kid with nothing into a rising millionaire almost overnight. This was the beginning of a financial story unlike any other in sports. At his peak, Mike Tyson wasn't just the most feared man on the planet, he was one of the richest athletes in history. By the late 1980s and throughout the 1990s, Tyson's fights weren't simply sporting events. They were global spectacles that generated tens of millions of dollars every time he stepped into the ring. Tyson's punches were fast, but his income was even faster. Major networks battled for broadcast rights, promoters competed for the biggest purses, and the world watched as his knockout streak turned into an economic machine. Tyson's earnings skyrocketed, beginning with his unification bouts and championship defenses. Fight after fight, he collected purses that most athletes could only dream of. In a single night, he could earn more than an entire roster of fighters made in a year. His bout against Michael Spinks in 1988 brought him a staggering payday, one of the largest in boxing history at the time. And that was only the beginning. As the years went on, Tyson's fights routinely pulled in millions from pay-per-view sales, gate revenue, and international broadcasting deals. But Tyson's earnings went far beyond fight purses. He signed multi-million-dollar endorsement deals with major brands, and his name alone drew crowds, media attention, and revenue. Whether he appeared on late-night shows or stood in front of cameras for pre-fight press conferences, everything Tyson did generated money. Documentary appearances, sponsorships, international tours, all added to the mounting fortune. At the height of his dominance, estimates suggest Tyson earned over $400 million during his fighting career. Adjusted for today's value, that number would be even larger. Tyson was not just a boxer, he was a cultural force, a global personality whose every move was monetized. His presence filled stadiums. His aura generated revenue before he threw a single punch. He redefined what it meant to be a sports superstar. But the most fascinating part of this chapter wasn't just how much he earned, it was how quickly the money came in. Tyson's rise was explosive, fueled by a rare combination of talent, personality, and spectacle. Few athletes in history have ever reached that level of financial momentum so young. But as Tyson's fortune grew, the pressure, chaos, and instability around him grew even faster. And that's where the story begins to shift, from earning millions to spending millions, and eventually facing the financial storm that would push his empire to the edge of collapse. For every million Mike Tyson earned, it seemed he found a way to spend two. The wealth poured in, but the money flowed out with even greater speed. Tyson lived in a world where limits didn't exist, and neither did budgets. His lifestyle became the stuff of legend. Exotic animals, mansions with 50-plus rooms, fleets of luxury cars, custom jewelry, and a permanent entourage that followed him everywhere he went. Tyson didn't buy the typical celebrity luxuries, he redefined excess. One of his most famous expenses was his decision to own Bengal tigers, a choice that became a symbol of his wild spending. But the tigers were just the beginning. Tyson bought multiple Rolls-Royces, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, and high-performance vehicles that filled garages the size of small warehouses. He purchased extravagant jewelry, often in six-figure transactions, and reportedly spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on custom pieces that matched his larger-than-life identity. Real estate was another area where Tyson's spending skyrocketed. He owned spectacular mansions, including a massive estate in Ohio, with crystal chandeliers, gold decor, an indoor pool, and even a private nightclub. His Las Vegas homes were equally extravagant, featuring sprawling grounds, oversized bedrooms, and amenities most people only see in millionaire magazines. Each home reflected the scale of Tyson's lifestyle, big, bold, and expensive to maintain. And then came the entourage. Tyson employed dozens of people, trainers, security guards, drivers, assistants, assistants, and friends who lived off his success. It wasn't unusual for Tyson to spend tens of thousands of dollars a night entertaining his circle. He was known to give away cars, watches, and cash on impulse. Generosity wasn't the issue. Sustainability was. Financial mistakes multiplied as Tyson's world grew more chaotic. Poor management, questionable contracts, legal battles, and massive settlements drained his wealth at a shocking rate. His association with promoter Don King also resulted in substantial financial controversy, and lawsuits followed Tyson from every direction. Divorce settlements, legal fees, and the cost of maintaining his extravagant lifestyle accelerated the downward spiral. By the early 2000s, the unimaginable happened. The man who once earned hundreds of millions was facing bankruptcy. His spending had outpaced his earnings, and years of unchecked consumption left him with overwhelming debt. Tyson filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2003, listing millions of dollars owed and very little left in liquid assets. The fall was dramatic, public, and heartbreaking. The world watched as one of the richest athletes in history collapsed under the weight of his own lifestyle. Yet even in the midst of financial ruin, Tyson's story was far from over. His downfall set the stage for something unexpected, a comeback that would rebuild not just his bank account, but his entire identity. And that comeback would prove that Iron Mike's greatest fight wasn't in the ring. It was against the financial chaos that nearly destroyed him. When Mike Tyson hit rock bottom financially, the world assumed the story was over. The mansions were gone, the exotic animals were gone, and the empire he once controlled had collapsed under the weight of chaos. But this is where Mike Tyson's wealth story becomes even more fascinating, because instead of fading into obscurity, he rebuilt his fortune from the ground up. And he did it not with knockout power, but with personality, humor, self-awareness, and an entirely new approach to business. After years of financial burnout, Tyson discovered something unexpected. People still loved him, not just as a fighter, but as a cultural figure. He had charisma, unpredictability, and a presence that could light up a screen. Hollywood took notice. Tyson began making appearances in films, shows, and commercials. But when he appeared in The Hangover in 2009, everything changed. The cameo became iconic, and suddenly, millions of young viewers who never watched his fights fell in love with him. This was the first major spark in his financial rebirth. Then came his one-man Broadway show, directed by Spike Lee. Tyson stepped on stage and told his story directly to audiences. Raw, emotional, brutally honest, and unexpectedly funny, the show was a financial success and proved that Tyson's personality alone could fill seats. For the first time, he wasn't being paid for punching. He was being paid for being Mike Tyson. The next phase of his comeback came through media. Tyson leaned into interviews, podcasts, viral clips, and documentaries. His openness about his past, the good and the bad, made him one of the most relatable figures in celebrity culture. He wasn't pretending to be perfect anymore. He was honest about mistakes, spending, addiction, and financial collapse. That honesty became currency. From this newfound momentum came his podcast, Hot Boxin' with Mike Tyson, which quickly became one of the top athlete-hosted podcasts online. Guests from every corner of entertainment, rappers, fighters, comedians, entrepreneurs, sat across from Tyson to discuss discipline, money, mental health, and life. Millions watched. Sponsors lined up. Tyson had reinvented himself as a digital-era personality. But the real comeback wasn't just about speaking, it was about learning. Tyson embraced a different philosophy about money. He once said, "I don't need tigers anymore. Peace is better." That transformation allowed him to make smarter investments, partner with better teams, and build businesses grounded in sustainability rather than spectacle. All of this created the foundation for the biggest financial move of his new life, a move that turned Mike Tyson not just into a cultural icon, but into a businessman with one of the most explosive ventures in modern celebrity entrepreneurship. That venture was Tyson Ranch, and it is the engine behind his modern wealth. When the cannabis industry surged into the mainstream, many celebrities rushed to associate their names with it. But Mike Tyson did something different. He didn't just endorse products, he built an entire business ecosystem around the plant. Tyson Ranch became more than a brand. It became the centerpiece of his new financial empire and the biggest contributor to his modern net worth. Tyson entered entered the cannabis industry at exactly the right time. When legalization momentum was accelerating, consumer interest was exploding, and the market was hungry for recognizable names. But while many celebrities slapped their name on a single product line, Tyson envisioned a complete experience. Tyson Ranch was built as a lifestyle brand, a cultivation center, a product distributor, and even a future luxury resort concept. The company developed and sold high-quality cannabis products, flowers, pre-rolls, extracts, edibles, branding them with Tyson's image of strength, wellness, and recovery. Fans trusted Tyson's storytelling about how cannabis helped his mental health, pain relief, and personal balance. This authenticity became a major marketing advantage. But the real brilliance of Tyson's strategy was scale. Tyson Ranch grew rapidly through partnerships, licensing deals, and collaborative ventures. Locations across the U.S. partnered to distribute Tyson products. His brand expanded into multiple categories beyond cannabis: CBD wellness, branded merchandise, smoking accessories, gummies, and even energy drinks. Then came the vision that captured global attention: a 400-plus acre luxury resort concept in the California desert, complete with a music festival area, amphitheater, dispensary, lazy river, and high-end lodging. While that full-scale project remains in development, the brand awareness generated by the announcement alone skyrocketed Tyson Ranch's value. What makes Tyson Ranch so important to his wealth is not just revenue, it's long-term equity. Fight money disappears. Movie money slows down, but a successfully built business can grow for decades. Tyson Ranch positioned itself as one of the more recognizable cannabis brands in the country, and Tyson became a legitimate entrepreneur with a company valued in the millions. Tyson's cannabis line also fits perfectly into the current economic climate. As legalization continues to expand, the industry grows more profitable each year. Tyson's early investment gives him massive leverage as markets open. He didn't just join the wave, he positioned himself at the front of it. And with his podcast, social media presence, and mainstream cultural influence continuously promoting the brand, Tyson Ranch has become the financial anchor that secures his newest chapter of wealth. But the Tyson empire is not only about businesses, it's also built on the lifestyle he lives today, which looks drastically different from the one that drained his fortune years ago. Mike Tyson's real estate journey reads like a biography of his financial life: early excess, midlife collapse, and a mature rebuilding phase. His homes tell the story of each chapter, from sprawling palaces to modest retreats to profitable investments. During his peak earning years, Tyson owned some of the most jaw-dropping properties in the world. The most famous was his legendary Ohio mansion, a 52-room palace filled with gold plating, crystal chandeliers, indoor pools, mirrored walls, spiral staircases, and even a private clubroom adorned with tiger cages. It was a symbol of unrestrained wealth, a concrete representation of the myth of Iron Mike. The property eventually changed hands multiple times and was famously converted into a church, an ironic twist that became a symbol of how far Tyson had fallen financially. His Las Vegas mansions reflected similar themes: beautiful architecture, giant bedrooms, lavish pools, and expensive upkeep. One Vegas property had 7 bedrooms, a state-of-the-art kitchen, game rooms, and a backyard built for celebrity-level entertaining. At the height of his wealth, Tyson could afford anything, but homes that large also carry monthly expenses equal to the cost of a normal family's yearly income. Then came bankruptcy. Tyson lost the majority of his properties as debts piled up and his spending spiraled. The mansions that once represented his power became reminders of financial collapse. The dramatic loss of his real estate portfolio was one of the clearest signs that his empire had crumbled. But the comeback era brought a different approach. Tyson bought a home in Henderson, Nevada, a beautiful but more modest and manageable property compared to his peak-era palaces. The house featured modern design, wide-open living spaces, a luxury kitchen, and a peaceful backyard, a space built for comfort and stability, not spectacle. This home represented Tyson's new life philosophy: fewer flash elements, more peace and purpose. Later, Tyson upgraded again, purchasing a new custom home in Las Vegas, a house worth several million but far more practical and financially balanced than the mansions he once owned. The home has modern architecture, large open rooms, fitness areas, outdoor entertainment sections, and enough space for Tyson's family and business activities. It's luxurious but grounded, wealthy but sustainable. The contrast between Tyson's old and new real estate choices mirrors his financial maturity. He no longer buys homes to impress the world. He buys homes to support his lifestyle, his work, and his mental peace. Through every rise and fall, Tyson's properties became milestones. And today, his real estate reflects the man he has become, not the reckless spender he once was. If Mike Tyson's mansions showed the scale of his fortune, his cars revealed the speed at which he earned and spent his millions. Tyson wasn't just a collector. He was a man who treated supercars the way other people treat shoes. He didn't buy them to admire them in garages. He bought them to use them, gift them, destroy them, and replace them without blinking. For Tyson, cars were both status symbols and emotional tools, expressions of power, success, and, at times, impulse. During his peak wealth years, Tyson's garage was one of the most extravagant in celebrity history. His fleet included multiple Rolls-Royces, each costing hundreds of thousands. Not one, not two, but several models, purchased across different moments of triumph. Tyson had Rolls-Royce Cornishes, silver spurs, and customized versions built to his personal taste. When he wanted pure comfort, he drove Rolls. When he wanted presence, he drove Rolls. It was the defining car of the Tyson era. Then came the high-performance exotics. Tyson owned Ferraris, including the Testarossa, and classic Lamborghinis, symbols of peak 80s and 90s glamour. He purchased Bentleys with custom interiors, Porsches built for speed, and even cars he barely drove but simply wanted in his collection. At one point, Tyson reportedly spent over $4 million on vehicles alone, a staggering sum for the time. But perhaps the most iconic chapter of his car collection involved the Bentley Continental T. Tyson famously crashed one of them, and instead of repairing it, he bought another. The idea of financial consequence didn't exist in his vocabulary back then. If something went wrong, he replaced it. If he wanted something, he bought it. Money didn't restrict him. It fueled him, and the cars were just the beginning. Tyson's obsession with the extraordinary extended into collectibles and rare items. He owned jewelry pieces worth hundreds of thousands, often ordering custom designs on the spot. He purchased gold chains, diamond-encrusted watches, and pieces that reflected his personality: bold, large, unmistakable. Tyson wasn't discreet, he was expressive. Every item he bought was a statement. Then, of course, there were the tigers, the most infamous part of his spending. While not cars, these animals became symbolic of the extreme excess of his lifestyle. Maintaining them cost tens of thousands per month. Feeding them required full-time specialists. They lived in custom enclosures that rivaled small zoos. The tigers weren't practical, logical, or financially wise, but they were Tyson. They represented a man living at the absolute edge of luxury. Yet for all his past extravagance, Tyson's modern lifestyle is much more grounded. Today, he still enjoys luxury, but he buys in moderation. He owns high-end vehicles, but nowhere near the excessive fleets of his prime. He wears premium clothing, but focuses more on comfort and expression rather than extravagance. And while he still appreciates beautiful objects, his priorities have shifted toward stability, peace, and meaningful investments. The contrast between then and now is powerful. The old Tyson bought cars because he couldn't imagine running out of money. The new Tyson buys with intention, because now he understands the value of control. The old Tyson lived like a king with no kingdom. The new Tyson builds wealth like a strategist. But even with his toned-down approach, Tyson's legacy as one of the most iconic spenders in sports history remains untouched. His cars, his animals, his jewels, they weren't just purchases. They were part of the mythology that made Mike Tyson unforgettable. Today, Mike Tyson's income doesn't come from punch-outs or championship belts. It comes from a carefully built network of revenue streams, each one contributing to a modern net worth estimated between $10 to $15 million. It's not the astronomical peak he once enjoyed, but it's a stable, sustainable, and diversified fortune built on strategy rather than chaos. The backbone of Tyson's current wealth is his business portfolio, with Tyson Ranch standing as the crown jewel. His cannabis business generates revenue through product lines, distribution partnerships, licensing agreements, and branded merchandise. Tyson Ranch has become a recognizable name in the cannabis market, and his authenticity, speaking openly about how cannabis helped him, gives the brand a credibility most celebrity companies don't have. Alongside the ranch is Tyson's podcast, Hot Boxin' with Mike Tyson. This platform became a hit almost immediately, attracting millions of viewers and securing high-value sponsorship deals. Guests across sports, entertainment, and culture join Tyson in a format that blends humor, honesty, and unpredictability. The podcast generates income through ads, sponsorships, brand integrations, and digital platforms. For Tyson, each episode is both entertainment and business. Another major income stream comes from endorsements and brand partnerships. Tyson remains remains one of the most recognizable faces in the world, and companies capitalize on that influence. He's endorsed CBD products, apparel lines, crypto platforms, boxing equipment, beverage companies, and more. Tyson's face, voice, and energy all carry immense marketing value. Brands know that when Tyson speaks, people listen. Tyson also earns from media appearances. He participates in documentaries, interviews, and specials that draw strong viewership. Netflix, HBO, ESPN, and Hulu have all tapped into the Tyson effect, commissioning projects about his life, career, and personal evolution. Each appearance contributes to his cash flow. Then there are licensing and royalties. Tyson's name, image, and likeness are powerful assets. Products featuring his branding, clothing, posters, collectibles, games, generate ongoing income. His autobiography sales and rights adaptations also add to the pot. Tyson's life story remains one of the most compelling in sports history, and major networks continue to revisit it in new formats. And of course, Tyson surprised the world with his exhibition boxing return, earning millions without stepping into the dangerous environment of professional competition. His exhibition against Roy Jones Jr. in 2020 became one of the most successful PPV events of the year, and Tyson has hinted that more exhibitions remain possible, each one representing a low-risk, high-reward payday. Finally, Tyson's investments, though private, reflect a far more disciplined approach than his youth. He places funds into business projects with long-term potential rather than short-term thrills. He has also become deeply focused on health, wellness, and family, spending more modestly and more meaningfully. Today, Tyson's wealth is not about excess. It's about endurance. His income no longer depends on destruction, but on expression, storytelling, and entrepreneurship. Tyson doesn't fight for millions anymore. He speaks for them. He builds for them. He invests for them. The man who once lost everything now earns his money through wisdom, not warfare. The final chapter of Mike Tyson's wealth story isn't about money. It's about meaning. Tyson's modern life reflects a man who finally understands the two things he never had in his youth: stability and perspective. Through business discipline, spiritual growth, and emotional maturity, Tyson's current wealth is defined not by size, but by sustainability. Tyson often speaks about finding peace, something money alone never gave him. In interviews, he says he doesn't chase wealth anymore. He builds it, slowly, patiently, intentionally. His days of compulsive spending are long gone. What replaced them is a philosophy rooted in self-awareness. Tyson now sees wealth as a tool, not a trophy. He buys less, he invests more, he focuses on family, health, and legacy. His biggest legacy asset is his brand. Tyson isn't just a retired boxer. He is a cultural symbol recognized everywhere in the world. That level of recognition doesn't disappear. It grows with time. Tyson's image will continue to generate revenue long after he stops appearing in public. His documentaries, shows, endorsements, and products will remain valuable for decades. His companies, especially Tyson Ranch, are primed to expand as legalization spreads. Tyson's legacy wealth also includes intellectual property. His life story has been retold so many times that it has become an industry of its own. Documentaries, biopics, books, and series keep his name alive, and each one brings royalties, licensing, and long-term value. What makes this chapter so powerful is that Tyson's fortune now outlives the chaos that once destroyed him. He no longer spends with reckless abandon. He no longer builds houses he can't maintain. He no longer carries entourages that drain millions. Instead, Tyson has crafted a quiet, mature version of wealth that supports his family and businesses without sacrificing peace. In the end, Mike Tyson's financial story is one of the greatest arcs in athlete history. He earned hundreds of millions, lost nearly all of it, rebuilt everything, and emerged stronger, not through violence, but through reinvention. His legacy is not the cars or the tigers or the mansions. It is the lesson. Wealth means nothing without wisdom, and wisdom is what finally made him wealthy again.